Cool. Okay, he's lining up the audio, that's why.
That's cool.
Okay, so I figured we could just start by like a quick introduction.
Sure.
So if you want to introduce who you are, what you do, and then I'll talk a little bit about me
Yeah.
in regards to our topic that we'll talk about today.
Yeah, so I'm Joel Murray, 33, been on staff, like I was telling you just a little bit earlier, been on staff at this church at Living Word as a pastor since 2011. Mm-hmm. So just past the 9-year mark, and loving wife, got 2 boys and a girl on the way, and very excited about life and what I get to do. I do feel like to whatever degree or level that this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay.
It's brought tons of fulfillment to my life, and so being a pastor is probably not for everybody. It's probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever had.
Okay.
I would say that, but it's definitely fulfilling, and I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to, so yeah.
Good. So my name's Josh, I'm 28. I'm a husband. I'm a soon-to-be father in April, so that's exciting. And
that is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. And I am not associated with the church at all. I used to be until I was like in high school, 16, 17 years old, but since then I've kind of been away from it.
Yeah.
Had negative feelings, positive feelings, just mixed feelings about it. A lot of questions too, which is why I thought I could sit down with somebody that was, about my age and talk a little bit about that and have like a discussion instead of a debate, and not have it be like heated and get into the weeds or anything like that. Just talk about whatever.
All about it, man.
Yeah.
Whatever
So I've got a bunch of questions. I don't know how many we'll get to today, but I'll pull out my phone. We'll start off just with whatever I've got.
Sounds good.
Okay. Let's see.
Let's start with prayer.
With prayer? Yeah.
I'm just kidding, dude. I'm just kidding. We ain't got to do that. I'm not like that, dude.
Oh man. Okay. So we could start off with a fun question, right? Okay. And this is one I've had debates with about people, so this isn't really as much as debate, because I feel like we're probably on about the same page with this.
Yeah.
What does Christianity view as far as people that are tattooed?
Oh man, like it's hard to generalize the whole organization of Christianity.
Yeah. I guess what are your views as your religious beliefs?
I mean, like if you want to dive into scripture, Jesus talks about having a tattoo on his thigh when he comes back in Revelation, riding on a white horse.
I did not know that.
So I mean, like I'm just like, my brother has tons of tattoos. I do not have any. Not for the lack of not wanting them. Like I feel like I would want them, but it's just I'm super indecisive.
Yeah.
And it is permanent, and I realize that. And so if I was going to get something, I would want it to be super meaningful or impactful or something.
That's like the number one reason why people don't get them. Is
yeah. So I probably fall into the stereotype, but I mean, dude, like Old Testament view would probably tell you that it's like a pagan practice. It's, frowned upon, the whole deal. I would tell you that my parents probably still feel the same way. So the senior pastors of the church I work for, totally not really cool with it. But at that same time, gosh, man, the majority of our staff has at least one. You know what I mean?
I noticed. I saw some when I walked in here.
And some of them have many. So it's not like it's a deterrent for them to hire or place you in leadership here, because they know that it doesn't affect the quality of the person or the heart of the person. It's a style preference more than anything. It's a decoration, and I feel like it's an expression too. It's a conversation starter for many of our team. I know they've talked to me about, like, people ask them about their tattoos and what they mean, and then they get to share their faith, or they get to talk about Jesus or stuff like that. So it's been a real eye-opening experience for me just to question people as to why they have what they have. But I mean, I would say the largest portion of the Christian faith probably would frown upon tattoos, which is why I feel like so many people don't feel welcomed in the church.
Yeah.
And that's the exact opposite of what we're trying to do here at Living Word. We want everybody to feel welcome, because everybody has a place, and regardless of what you look like, what your gender, color, ethnic, whatever it is, you're welcome. You have a place here, and so that's what I feel like Jesus represented, and that's what we're trying to do here at the church. So I don't know. I still want one. Maybe you can give me some tips. I'm not sure what I should get, but
I got a lot here and there.
And I got a lot. I even have some friends that are artists, so I already know who I would go to. And we talk all the time, but it's just kind of landing on what I would want to get. And I don't know. It is conflicting because of how my parents are, who they are, and then being in the position I have as kind of like the number 2 around the church, like. I don't know. It's just if you do something that is your representation of something, so you might be like pushing it, saying this is an okay thing, and you don't want to maybe. And I want to be honoring to them, like not just because they're my parents, but because they are my leadership here. and I know that they don't enjoy them. And so if I were to get one, it just would be a rough couple of weeks probably for them to get over it, I guess. And
I understand that.
it's heartache that's unnecessary. So
It's surprising my parents were way more upset when I stretched my ears than when I got tattoos.
Really?
Yeah, because I had these huge holes in my ear, and it looked really bad.
How big did you go?
Like 1.5 inches. So they were like right about that.
That's a
and
serious hole.
Got them sewn up. So I will say to anybody watching, don't do that, especially if you ever have to sew your ears up, because it was terrible.
Oh man.
And when he was sewing up my ear like was only half numb. So when he started cutting it, I'm like, oh dude, I feel that. And he said, well, I can stop, but I have to stop. If you want me to just keep going. I said, all right, just do it. So I felt him cutting it and ripping it and all that stuff. I heard it too, which was the worst. So yeah, definitely way different than tattoos.
Oh man.
For sure. And when I was a kid, it was like no big deal. I just did it for fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I want to separate myself from all the military people I'm around, so I don't look like I'm a Marine, like, because I lived in Japan, so I didn't want to set up that way. So something you just said brought me to another question I had. And this is a big one too. I feel like my understanding of the Bible is that the Old Testament were old rules that we followed before Jesus came. And then the New Testament were a new set of rules, and this is how we live now, which is why we can wear 2 different types of cloth, why we can plant soybeans right next to corn, why we don't stone people to death because they had a child out of wedlock or anything like that.
Sure.
So I'm curious, do we use the Old Testament as a guideline of like morals? Do we use that as just like a storybook now? Is that something, why do I find some people pulling verses from Leviticus to talk about why this thing is bad, yet they won't pull a verse from Deuteronomy that says to stone somebody to death when they do something wrong?
Yeah, sure.
How does that whole thing work now?
Man, I'll tell you.
Sorry if that's like a really big question or anything.
I feel like it is a relatively big question. I probably don't have the best answer for it.
Okay.
That's normally when I have to like go do some research. But
okay.
I do think like God is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so before Jesus came and brought grace, there was the law.
Mm-hmm.
And so because nobody was able to live up to the law that was written, Jesus was then a requirement.
Okay.
So I do think that there's tons of stuff in the law that a lot of people hold on to. But in my opinion, those are the really legalistic, really judgmental sections of the faith. And I'm not I would refer to it as a greasy grace person.
Okay.
Where I feel like you can do anything you want, whenever you want, and there's no consequences for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really buy into that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that there's, when you have faith in Jesus, it brings obedience. That if you truly love God and who he is and what he's done for you, it makes you want to do the things that he says because of the life that it brings. Mm-hmm. And so for me, doing anything out of the Old Testament has never been out of a heart of like, if I don't do this, I'm going to hell, I'm going to burn forever. It's been more out of a desire to please my creator, you know what I mean? It's been out of a desire to like, I don't know. I think there's definitely a balance there, and I think what you get out of the Old Testament is you get to see like the hand of God move on the planet, and in the New Testament we get to see that reflected through a person. And so you look at Old Testament, I think of stories like in Exodus of he was a pillar of cloud, of fire by night and a cloud by day, literally seeing like miracles happen every single day of your life. And what that would do to you, I feel like, would do nothing but make you want to draw close. Yeah. But time and time again, people fail. Yeah. And there's this constant. So even in the midst of what seems like super judgmental God that is calling you to kill people that have babies out of wedlock and stuff like that.
I mean, I don't know if that's an exact verse, but I mean, I've seen a lot of verses that say
there's some really drastic stuff in the Old Testament, and pretty contrasty stuff from what you would think a loving God would present. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, through all the judgment, he told them what would happen if they did it wrong, and then they did it wrong anyway. Yeah. And yet he still gave them another chance, and yet he still gave them another chance. And so repeatedly through the Old Testament, you get to see the love that he still had for the people of Israel and wanting them to succeed and be the people they were always destined to be. And so I think that there's a lot of maybe misunderstanding where you pick a verse out of the really harsh judgment that came, but you didn't see the context of the before. Okay. Where you didn't see
how many chances they were given.
Yeah, or even the conversation God would have with the leader, this is going to happen if you do this wrong, you know what I mean? And then people chose unwisely and consequences comes. It's what I teach my kids. If you do something dumb, you've been taught better. If you do something wrong, there's going to be punishment. And punishment now looks a lot different than when you grow up and you're still doing dumb stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have the consequences are at much higher stakes. So I'm trying to get them fixed now so they don't make those mistakes later.
Yeah.
So I think there's some element of that holds true in the Old Testament versus the New. But it's easier to look at the life of Jesus. I've always heard and fully believe that Jesus is perfect theology.
Okay.
So
what do you mean by perfect theology?
So basically any belief I have about God and who he is and his plan and what he desires is lived out through the life of Jesus. So
okay. So he's a perfect representation of...
So, Jesus says in the New Testament that he came to fulfill the law, not to abolish it. And so, he didn't come to do away with everything that happened in the Old Testament, but he came as a fulfillment for people not being able to live up to the expectation or the requirement to be good enough, so to speak. And so his payment on the cross and living a perfect life, sinless, has now paid the way for me to live the life I get to live here on earth now, but then also have eternity in heaven. And so, Jesus, he kind of fixed all the problems that people are having. And so grace, I believe, is 100% necessary, but I don't like to lean on that as an excuse to do whatever I want.
Gotcha. So I guess I've got two questions from what you were saying. And I guess one of them is, so when you read the Bible and you look back in the Old Testament, New Testament, the whole thing, you see quite a few different miracles that are very obvious miracles, right? There was no technology back then to do what happened. When a bush is on fire and it doesn't burn, they couldn't do that back then. Somebody walks on water, they don't have flotation devices like we do today, right? So it seems like there was very obvious miracles to them that they were like, there's no way this can't be proven to be not a holy act of some sort. Do you think that today, with today's technology, with the information that's constantly proven to be incorrect or slightly skewed or a blatant lie, you think it's harder for people to believe in a religion like Christianity when they don't have necessarily the tangible proof that people might have had back in the day? If I see someone who had cancer, that the cancer goes away, I might say, oh, that's a miracle, and somebody else might say, oh, well, that's actually just science because you took chemotherapy and that's why your cancer is gone.
100%. Yeah, I think that miracles today, because of the skepticism that's there and so many people not really believing, that there's much higher probability that people struggle to believe something is true, that even caught on camera, camera tricks that people would pull, they claim why did they change the camera angle, why did it cut there?
All the 9/11 conspiracy things just from that footage alone.
Yeah, so I think that that's definitely true. At the same time though, I would tell you that I feel like I'm a walking miracle. Not too many people are in a car crash at 70 miles an hour with a stopped object and get to live to tell about it without their seatbelt on. Oh wow. So I'm not sure what that number is, but it's got to be really low. You know, the people that survive something like that. And so
I can't believe I forgot.
Man, you're good.
When it's the guy I've been waiting to get a call from for 4 months.
So I believe 100% miracles do happen, but I agree with you that I do believe that there may be, there's a lot more reason to believe that they're not. And it takes a lot more, convincing or God would have to show up in their life and do something that they would have trouble believing in order to actually believe that something like that could ever happen.
Okay. Yeah, a big part of that for me too is just seeing, I guess a huge problem I have with a lot of religion are people that benefit monetarily from their organization. So, I don't know how you feel about people like Joel Osteen or people that have mega churches that make millions and millions of dollars a year.
Sure.
But that's something that really rubbed me the wrong way, especially seeing people that would fall into what I thought was almost like smoke and mirror tricks, when somebody goes in the audience and they say, oh, I can cure this person, and just touch their head and all of a sudden they're a walking miracle.
Right.
I feel like that was a big thing for me too. Another reason why I was I'm just not about it anymore.
For sure. So,
but I guess judging the bad side of people,
if
you do that all the time, everybody sucks.
Well, that's what I was going to instantly jump to. So I would tell you I struggle. I really do. Internally in my conversations with God and other people that I trust, I really struggle with those types of personalities that represent the faith.
You mean the personalities that kind of like are a little bit bigger than
Yeah.
in real life?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Kenneth Copeland being worth almost $1 billion,
Yeah.
and a couple private jets, and Jesse Duplantis, Creflo Dollar. I mean, you go down the list of all these people, the prosperity gospel, and all that kind of stuff. I do believe that God's plan and intention is for people to prosper, because He asks us to be generous, and if you're broke and poor, you can't be generous and give. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there's some level of being obedient to give financially, and the blessing that I've seen on my own life through that has been pretty wild too. I'm not sure how long of a conversation you want to have. That's a longer story.
No, I know you.
But to answer the question, I've really tried to decide within myself that I don't want to judge them because I don't know them.
Okay.
So I feel like I can have an outward, I don't know what you want to say. Like I can view them from the outside looking in, and to me it looks super wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they've walked through. You know, I've heard people like T.D. Jakes, and he's got to be worth tons of money too. But he also not just pastors a church, not just sells books, but he also owns like a media company. He like produces movies.
So he's got money coming.
Yeah, he's like an
multiple.
entrepreneur at the same time that he's pastoring a church. And so these guys have different levels of income based on different, you know, avenues of creating that. And so where on the outside it looks like these people are just bringing in the money from all these poor people. At the same time, like their book sales are like New York Times bestsellers.
Yeah. So
I mean, there's all different types of, you know, I guess ways of looking at it. And so I've just tried to decide within myself, like God, I'm just going to trust that you're going to use them, and it's obviously blessing people because otherwise these people wouldn't have anything.
Yeah.
So it's got to be helping somebody. My prayer more than anything is just that like hopefully their faith is not in that person as much as it's in the Lord.
Okay.
So that's where I've tried to settle is like I really do struggle to be honest. Like I do not like most of them. So it's a battle for me to like just pray for them and to just trust that God's going to use them regardless. So.
And I guess it's kind of a hypocritical thing for me to be like annoyed with, I guess, because, you know, it's somebody else. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect me personally at all. So it's just something that I see and then I get angry and it like hardens it to where when I look at religion in general, like then I start to have issues with like the institution of it, not like the belief, not like the morals, not like what the story is or what it actually is, but a lot of the times I felt when I was younger that I would see a lot of hypocritical things and it just bothered me. But I guess it's kind of hypocritical of me to be so judgmental of somebody, especially because nobody is perfect. There's no way to be perfect at all.
For sure.
So to sit there and judge everybody for their faults, I wouldn't want people to do that for me. So I guess that's kind of a,
I tell people all the time, and like I willingly accept the fact that I am unable to do this life by myself. That and in times of struggle, which is most days, you know what I mean? There's always going to be some sort of something to overcome every single day you wake up. And so I rely on my relationship with the Lord and the things I read out of the Bible and the principles that I can apply to my life. I rely on my relationship with God and having the Holy Spirit speak to me and trying to listen to that still small voice. It's kept me out of a lot of trouble. At the same time, man, I would say that I've felt crazy hypocritical through the years, knowing my own struggles and then the position I hold at a church and, you know, the God that I represent. It's a real battle, like trying to overcome your own issues and kind of relying on that relationship with the God to walk you through. And I need grace just like everybody else and rely on it heavily. I need forgiveness and so anyway, yeah, I think it's probably something that everybody battles with. Just people turn to different stuff to deal with it.
Yeah.
So.
I bet it's pretty hard to be a pastor, especially at a younger age too, because I feel like everybody, if they find out you're a pastor, they're going to be looking at you through a magnifying glass, saying, how much money are you making? What are you doing with your money? Are you smoking cigarettes? Do you drink alcohol? Do you have I mean, just like so much, like, are you following every single guideline you have to?
For sure.
Which I feel like I could not handle.
Yeah, you're pretty much instantly at the mercy of like thousands of people's opinions that really don't know you that well, but they act like your best friends. And you know, it's fine. Like I get it. And like
is that rough to deal with, the two-faced thing, or where they act like your best friend because of your position?
I mean, you know, like I said at the beginning of the interview, it's one of the hardest jobs I've ever had, but there's definitely people I connect with on a personal level and have a relationship with, and we're friends and we talk, and we're trying to grow together in our faith, trying to raise our families together, bouncing ideas off, what's working for you, what's working for me, things like that. But the thing for us and what we feel like is very biblical is to not be personality focused, which maybe kind of points to some of the people you were bringing up before, you know, like the Joel Osteens and some of the people I mentioned, like the Jesse Duplantis or Creflo Dollars, that kind of get a bad rap. I feel like it's because a lot of the driving force of those ministries is the person that's speaking,
rather than the actual idea,
as opposed to the faith that they're presenting, and the God that they represent. So, and that's just a human thing, you know. Like I wouldn't even 100% blame them for that. Like people are looking for that. I feel like, you know what I mean. And so for a God that you can't see, why not follow the closest thing you got to it in your pastor? And so I think there's a lot of baby Christians. Honestly, there's probably way more baby Christians on the planet than there are people that are actually doing what they're supposed to. And you know, they haven't really made the faith their own. They've relied on a person to tell them everything they need to know, as opposed to diving into it themselves and trying to dig deeper in their faith and find out who Jesus really is to them. And so that was a real crossroads for me, you know. My parents being pastors my whole life, and me only knowing the church that I now get to help pastor. I was 2 years old when they planted, and growing up as a pastor's kid, I mean, you had a similar story. Sounds like, you know, very Christian.
My mom worked in the church like our entire time growing up too, so we were always around it.
You know, so like, there's lots of pressure that comes with that. You know, for sure. That's just kind of unspoken. It's just part of the deal. Like, you grow up as a pastor's kid. It's just like there's expectations placed on you.
Get good grades, don't get in trouble. Do all
it
that
is
stuff.
The fishbowl thing, you know, that you were talking about earlier too. And there's just all these opinions of people from the start of your life that you don't really have control over. And so, but you know, I think I had to make a decision at some point in my life that this is no longer my parents' thing that I'm a part of. This is now, I feel like, my truth and my faith, and I want to make Jesus the Lord of my life and not just ride on the coattails, you know, my mom and dad. So I started trying to dig into the scripture myself, and I started praying for myself, and it wasn't just praying at bedtime or dinner, you know what I mean? It was actually having conversations with God and trying to go a little bit deeper in what a walk with Him actually looks like. And so yeah, I think there's that, you know, there's that moment too for people where they have to not look to the pastor for everything, but they should be looking to God, who desires a relationship, who desires to talk to them, is actually talking to them. They just have to learn how to listen. Okay. So I believe God speaks to everybody. It's just a matter of how well you listen. You know, we talked earlier too, but that still small voice, you know, He's still in small on purpose. And I feel like most of the time that we're not able to hear Him, it's because of a level of distraction and noise cluttering our life, whether that be, you know, social media is a huge thing right now. Obviously, it provides tons of good, I think, but at the same time, it's a huge pitfall for so many to get stuck in the noise and rhetoric that's around our world, especially in the fall of 2020.
Yeah, especially because we don't have a whole lot of regular society anymore. So all social media
coronavirus
is like
and social injustice. I mean, you just name it, and you can't say anything right on the internet right now without getting blasted.
Yeah, and I've even found myself, I would not consider myself extremely PC at all. I've even found myself like deleting a comment because I'm like, I don't want somebody to take this the wrong way. And I don't know if that's the social justice stuff coming back, you know, where I'm kind of like more conscious of what I say to not offend people, or if it's like me just not trying to be rude. But it's definitely something that I've noticed is way different than when we were growing up.
It's way different, man.
Yeah. I mean, even just like so I grew up in like the early 2000s. I feel like the late 90s, early 2000s is like my prime growing up times, right? MySpace, AskJeeves.com because Google didn't exist.
Yes, dude.
YouTube without advertisements, all that kind of stuff, right?
Man, the good days.
And the internet has changed so much just from that to today that it used to be like you said anything on the internet, you get blasted, people threaten to kill you, all this kind of crazy stuff. It's Wild West. Yeah. But now if you say something that somebody can construe as something that's rude, you get blasted and you lose your job. So I'm kind of like nervous about what I say on the internet now, just because if I say something the wrong way that somebody takes the wrong way, I might not ever be able to do videos anymore because somebody just holds on to it forever. That's kind of like off topic, but you know.
No, I mean, it's real. And I think like, especially being in ministry, and my goal is to like reach people and like to help them. It's a difficult season to feel like I know the truth is going to help set people free. But if I say anything in regards to anti whatever their lifestyle is or anti their belief, it's going to be like, and so anyway, I just try to not do stuff online, you know what I mean? As powerful of a tool as it is, I've kind of relied on like what the church is doing in our online accounts, social accounts and stuff like that. I feel like that's bringing truth to people. My job is to have conversation, because I feel like there's not enough of that. So stuff like this is kind of where I feel like I should live, and getting to know people's stories and where they come from. I don't want to just put a blanket statement out there online for just anybody to comment on, or I don't want to comment on somebody else's thing that could be misconstrued or misunderstood, because written form of communication.
There's no sarcasm in it. There's no tone of voice at all.
Yeah, you can't hear anything in it, and you can't really see where people are coming from or hear how it's coming across. And so, I don't know, I think I've heard like it's only like 30% of communication comes
verbal.
through.
Yeah.
So,
and another part of that too is that like half the time I see something I want to comment on, I'm furious about it, or I'm upset about it, or there's some emotion that I have that's fleeting.
Right.
But in the moment, I don't have somebody I'm looking at, so I can say a lot more behind a screen than I could to somebody's face, because I don't want to offend them, but then I know that I'm going to end up offending them anyways, or make them upset. I don't really do that anymore. When I was in high school, I was really big on, arguing with people on the internet, but I know what you mean though. Especially because I might not have those feelings if I was talking to them in person. Seeing their face and seeing how they act might change my opinion about what they're saying. For sure. Rather than hearing them type it out.
I mean, you gotta, in the position I hold too, like you gotta pastor people's opinions. You know what I mean? And they come from everywhere. And so just as many people think that we're all best friends, there's tons of people that would like disagree with things that we say or do, and those people don't obviously stick around too long. But and it's difficult, that they I don't know, just take one thing that they disagree with and they throw the whole thing out.
Gotcha.
Or all of a sudden we're bad guys because we did one thing wrong.
Is that like are you referring to things like how you interpret a specific verse of the Bible, or?
That, or just how the Bible applies to daily life.
Okay.
And, what kind of truth and freedom comes out of that. I think there's plenty of space for like, I don't know, everybody wants grace for themselves.
Okay.
But giving it, I feel like, is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
And especially in church, like, of all people, the people that are not allowed to mess up at all or have any type of struggle would be pastors. What I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's totally misunderstood from outsiders looking in that we're people too.
Yeah.
Like we have to live life just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And sure, we know the Bible maybe a little bit better, and we might be better at public speaking than others. But at the same exact time, like, we're raising families. We got, finance issues, and
you get stuck in traffic just like everybody else. Stub your toe on what it says.
You get cut off on the highway, and words want to fly out. It's just like the struggle is the same regardless of who you are. So there's a lot of that too that kind of comes with like the pressure, the fishbowl thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of preconceived ideas about pastors or people that are in religious like leadership roles in general. Is that they are better, and therefore that's why they're at their role. They're better at being a Christian, or they're better at being following all these rules, so that's why they're doing what they're doing, rather than maybe they're just better at explaining things, or better at just putting it out there. So I know a lot of people that are very godly that are terrible at speaking, and they can't finish a sentence to save their life, so that's probably why they wouldn't be any sort of leadership role. I mean, I don't mean to get political at all, but if Donald Trump was a pastor, I don't think you would ever come out of a sermon being like, I learned something, because it's just like one sentence starts here and then all of a sudden we're back.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that would work out too well for him or anybody else. But
I won't put that in the video.
Yeah, luckily he's not anybody's pastor. He's just the president right now. So.
I guess that kind of does bring something up though. So I'm curious about this, and this is a political thing, but also it's not really a political thing. And we don't have to put this in the video if it's something that you're uncomfortable talking about. But a big problem that I have with not religion, but people that use religion, like people like Joel Osteen, or is it Osteen or Osteen? I don't know.
Osteen,
yeah. People like that I feel like use the Bible as a prop. Use religion as like a prop in a story, almost like they're actors, and like, just kind of dance around like, hey, look at this, look at this. Is that not sacrilegious, blasphemous in some way to use religion, or use the fact that you say, I'm a Christian, to get votes when you know that that's not true and this person doesn't lead a godly lifestyle, they can't quote any scripture to save their life? Is that, would that be considered a morally, I guess, I don't know how to like phrase it, a morally or religiously wrong thing to vote for somebody simply because they say they're the same religion as you?
I would say that's twisted for sure. To represent yourself to, by Donald Trump in the middle of that riot and stuff, taking a picture of himself with the Bible.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I know,
I'm glad that you know what I'm referring to.
I think he even used like, what were those, like just the gas or whatever to like clear space to like get rioters away from the church, whatever that was. I was actually really disappointed. So Donald Trump, I feel like with all of his flaws, one of the best things I feel like he has done is he has brought in like super godly counsel. So he has like this whole team of like dozens of pastors and really big names in our faith and stuff to be able to bring influence and to speak to him and to have his ear. But honestly, as public as he's been about that side, I was really frustrated at those same guys that he's brought onto that team for not like, they almost like condoned it by not talking about it, that what he did. Like, I feel like they know he should have never done that, and that was like super messed up. Yeah. But they didn't call him on the carpet for it. And so I feel like, man, you can't sing his praises, but then not correct him when he does something dumb. Yeah. So I think there's definitely something twisted about using the Bible just to get votes. Yeah. Or,
I mean, it happens on both sides, whether it's Republican, libertarian, liberal, socialist. I see people all the time using religion for that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's something that it's...
and I mean, I don't want to say that Donald Trump's not actually a Christian or doesn't have a faith at all. Because
I was talking about that with Mom. You can't actually know.
Because I don't know him. Yeah. And I can't tell you that at all. I just know what he says. And so him taking a picture with the Bible, how he did that, I feel like was super wrong, in the midst of like what didn't happen on camera. But yeah, I think like, I don't know, if that was his sole motive, was just to get a picture in that location with a Bible, just to make sure that the Christians that are voting want to vote him in again. Like, yeah, that's pretty twisted for sure.
Okay. So I've got a question that will be getting more into like I mentioned, I was involved with the church for like 17, 18 years. So I have quite a bit of knowledge about scripture, how certain views people have on verses and things like that. So I've got quite a bit of like in-depth questions that might not be good for a video like this, because it's probably like, you either can't answer it, or it's a really long answer, or we don't know. Yeah. So I want to ask a couple of those questions now, just to see how we feel about them, right? So one of the first questions I have are falling from grace, right? I feel like a lot of different denominations have specific views on whether, after you become a Christian, whether you can do something so bad that you are no longer a Christian anymore, or you stop living your lifestyle and you walk away from it, therefore you're no longer saved. And then when you die, you are not allowed into the kingdom of heaven anymore. And I feel other people believe, a vast majority of people I think, believe that when you become a Christian, there's nothing that you can do to change that, and therefore you are a Christian, whether you become a serial killer, a rapist, a murderer, it doesn't matter. You're going to become, you're staying a Christian regardless of what you do afterwards. And then there's other people that believe that you can live this kind of lifestyle, and then you're on your deathbed, be like, my bad, and then everything's okay. Yeah. So I'm curious, what are your views, I guess, personal, or what are the views of Living Word? Because I don't want to get a view from you that's different from them if you're representing them.
No, sure. I would say that our opinions definitely line up. So I mentioned kind of before, I feel like that falls into the greasy grace category that I was mentioning before. I can kind of do whatever, live whatever life I want after I accept Jesus, and I'll still be good. I do not buy into that at all. So,
in the sense that like if you live whatever life you want, then you can lose what
because I feel like just as much as it was a choice for you to accept Jesus into your life, it's just as much as a choice to leave it. You know what I mean? And if there's zero evidence of God in your life, then why would you try to act like it's a part of it? You know what I mean? That I don't buy into the whole like fire insurance idea, where like I'm going to give my life to God now just to make sure that I'm like have my ticket to get into heaven, and then go do whatever I want. The Bible, it talks about in the New Testament towards the end, it's talking about like Lord, Lord, I knew you, and so it's like basically people having a conversation with God when they go to heaven, and God tells them, it says many will I turn away and say I never knew you. So people that are acting like they prayed a prayer and that was their salvation. Yeah. Like, man, salvation is so much more than a prayer, and it's choosing, like asking for forgiveness and repentance is doing a 180. Okay. So you can't truly be repentant for your life and give your life to Jesus if you don't change anything about what you're doing.
And that's not to say that you can't sin anymore, right?
No, not at all.
I mean, just like David, right?
Yeah.
He killed people, and he had a child with somebody's wife, and then went and murdered him. And then like supposedly was one of God's favorites still.
Yeah.
So
man after God's own heart. And I think in his story, it's interesting you bring him up because I feel like out of his story in the Old Testament, like you see that happen with nobody else. The decisions that David made, you don't see those decisions happen in almost anybody else, and they got away with it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's because David was a worshiper, and he was a man after God's heart, and he desired so passionately to please the Lord that even though he slipped and messed up and made dumb mistakes, his heart was still, like, I think that's definitely 100% the difference. You know, like a lifestyle of sin is different than messing up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's something that, I guess not the lifestyle of sin part, but something that you're talking about kind of is another reason why I kind of stepped away from everything too, right? Praying the prayer and then assuming that that's everything you need to do.
Right.
I mean, I did that when I was younger, and then being terrified of going to hell, did it again when I was older, and then being terrified that I didn't do it the right way before, did it a third time. But every single time I felt no change. I felt no difference. I felt no pull in any direction. I felt no connection to anything.
Yeah.
No matter how many times I would sing with everybody, no matter time, if I closed my eyes, if I raised my hand in the air, if I tried to pray by myself, I felt nothing.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel a pull, I didn't feel a change, I didn't feel a connection, like a phone line, like where I could just like talk to God in any way. So that was a big reason why I kind of stopped too, because I was just like, well, I don't get anything. It's not like I wear a t-shirt now that says like, I'm a Christian. So I'm like, yeah, I know I'm a Christian because I got this cool t-shirt. It's just like, am I? I don't know. I believe it, I guess, but I never really had that solidified, like, I felt like a lot of people I knew had this moment in time where they're like, I wasn't really sure, and this happened, and then I was like, yes, I'm on board, I know it. I've never had that. Regardless of the times I've been in car accidents, been around people that, like I've been around, and when I got to Dayton, a kid got killed in front of my car, it was shot. So bullets flying around me, didn't get hit, getting all these things where like, these are similar situations where somebody else is like, and then I knew.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's very like, terrible of me to say, but I've never had that exact experience yet. So how do you know where you're like, yes, I know I'm doing right. I know I'm going to go to heaven because I know I'm doing this the right way. Can somebody pray the prayers the same exact way and try it and never feel anything?
Yeah.
And how does that, I know it's a really big question, but.
No, I mean, it's cool. So like for me, and it probably depends on the person, the personality, how you engage or receive emotionally, what your emotional response is to a moment like what you're referring to, getting the goosebumps or the feels or having a moment. I feel like everybody responds to that differently. I would say there's too many people that seek that, that they want to feel something. And in reality, man, like I just feel like it's a choice. It's a daily decision to make. Life is hard, regardless of who you are and where you come from. And so, whatever gunshot moment or car accident thing happens, there might not be moments where you get like chills because of God's protection or saving your life, but I do think prayer is necessary because the Bible does talk about confess with your mouth your sins and stuff. And so I do think there's something to a prayer where you're actually confessing to God and saying words. But after that, so we say here at the church, and I 100% personally believe this as well, that it's God's job to save people. Like that's what he does. But you find freedom and healing through others. So maybe what you're referring to is like having that moment at 17, kind of maybe deciding to step away, experiencing no change, never feeling any difference. I would say, or maybe ask, do you feel like you ever opened up to anybody about struggles that you had?
Oh no, actually this is the very first time. Yeah, I'm not even lying. This is the very first time because I was just pissed.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I was so angry and I was very immature.
Yeah.
So I couldn't say anything because every time I brought it up to somebody, they were like, well, you're supposed to believe it. So it was a very, like, if I had questions, I don't know why I'm looking over towards you. If I had questions about something and I brought it to a relative or somebody in the church, a lot of the times it was just like, I don't know what to tell you. You just have to believe. And I was like, I don't like that answer. Yeah. And maybe that's what the answer is, but at the time, at 17 years old, when you have all this stuff going on around you, you've got all these hormones, and you start to, I feel like it's an age where you start to see the bad in the world that you didn't see before. And then to get the same answer of like, I don't know what to tell you, dude, you have to believe it. And when I would ask questions like, well, how do you know yours is right? Like Muslims will kill themselves for theirs. Like I've not met a whole lot of Christians that are willing to blow themselves up over theirs, or like murder somebody over it. Buddhists will give away everything and live with a life of nothing for theirs. So
we love comfortable Christianity for sure.
Yeah, and it's very, that was something I really struggled with. And I've never really opened up to people a lot because it usually turned into a debate and then a heated argument. And because, like I said, I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to scripture because I was so in it trying to find it for so long that I would use that to throw at people because I knew that they couldn't fight me on it for a long time. So I wouldn't. And it was very rude. It was very rude because I would talk to somebody that I knew didn't really know what they're talking about.
I'm going to win this argument.
And I'm like, yeah, I won. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leviticus what? No, I know what it is. And then I would just throw it. And it's very terrible to do that. So I figured, why not talk to somebody that I don't have a connection with?
Yeah.
And just have, because I don't have any emotions either way about it,
For sure. So like, again, confession, I feel like brings salvation. So it's like God's job to save people. But then our job after that is to then, like the Bible just talks about how you find healing and freedom through expression to others. So that's why we're supposed to talk and dialogue about what we're going through, because that's where you experience true freedom. It brings accountability. It brings like whatever change you were trying to make through a prayer. And then it makes it real life and it brings it into like a practical sense. And so I'm all about practical ministry, like whatever's going to actually help people before they walk out the door. I don't want to just talk about big theories and theology and the real
whether there were real people with Adam and Eve besides just the two of them and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, just all that kind of stuff, those types of questions. I take the Bible at its word. I do believe that the people in the Old Testament were not just like make-believe fairy tale stories. I think all that stuff really happened.
Okay.
But yeah, I just think that there's so much help that God provides through Scripture if people find the right source. And so if they're able to actually like put into practice the things that they can read, it's so much more than just a church experience. And I think a lot of churches miss it. A lot of churches do just rely on that prayer at the altar call to do their job for them. For us, that's the starting line. For us, that's like, okay, we got you. God got your life right, but now let's actually get you like help and fixed and get you on track to be the person that you want to be. So
yeah. Okay, that's a pretty good answer.
Yeah, so the vision of the church is know God, which is paramount. It's first and foremost. And then we want to help you find freedom, discover your purpose after you've gotten like past your yesterdays, past your hang-ups and all the things that would like try to pull you back down. After you get over those things, then we want to try to help you discover who you are, like who did God place you on the earth to be, because everybody's got unique gifts and talents and personality and all those stuff. We want to help you find those things. And then help you to discover what that is, so then ultimately step 4, you can help us make a difference, because we believe everybody's put on the earth to do that, in whatever capacity and whatever sphere you're in, regardless of your title, your income, any of that kind of stuff. Everybody's got a job to do, and we want to make sure everybody's able to pull that job off and do it well. So
okay, let me try to end it on something less huge. Let's see. I've got a lot of stuff like. Let me ask you which one you would like to talk about then.
Okay.
So, stories in the Bible often seem to be referred to as like metaphors or anecdotes. So how do you differentiate between what's metaphor and what's literal? This should be done. That's one of them. We already talked about the Old Testament versus the New Testament. Yeah, how do you know Christianity is the right one? Like we kind of touched on that for a second ago. Like how do you personally feel for that? And let's see here. Oh yeah, this is a kind of a big one. If God and the devil fight at the end of time for the earth, right, so that we can inherit the earth back again, right, what happens to all the people in hell? I thought they're supposed to be there for eternity. If God takes over everything, hell is then disappeared, but then, or like, eradicated, but then what happens to all the people that were in hell? They're no longer in hell for eternity. Are they just gone forever, which means hell's not eternity, or how does that whole thing work? That's a weird one to talk about. I guess that the last one would be, let's see, do Jews go to heaven? That's another question I had, because they're God's chosen people, but they also don't accept Christ as their Lord and Savior, so therefore they can't go to heaven, or they do? I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I'll let you pick which one you'd like to talk about.
The other ones I probably don't have much of an answer. Honestly, I don't know if I have a great answer for any of those.
Okay. Or we could just talk about whatever you want to talk about for the last half of it.
As far as the Jewish stuff goes, like, again, if you look in the Old Testament, Israel, like they screwed up all over the place and all over themselves, and it's a personal decision. There is no blanket for going to heaven. 100%, I believe that Jew or non-Jew, whoever you are, wherever you come from, having a relationship with Jesus is the only way to heaven. And so for me, it's like, just because you were born Jewish doesn't make you any better than anybody that wasn't. and that's not like an automatic ticket into heaven forever. So God provides you with choices and decisions that you make here, and that's kind of the only life. We only get one chance, to do it the right way. And so I think to answer that question, like, no, I don't believe just because you're Jewish you get to go to heaven. So yeah, that's.
So
that's
are you one of the people that believes that? I shouldn't say one of people. One of many people that believe that God will present Himself to everyone in some way. So some person in the Amazon who worships a tree is their God, who's never spoken to a Christian in their entire life and lives their entire life in an Amazon tribe of 10 people.
Yeah.
You think that He will present Himself in some way to them? So
I do, yeah. I think that. I think that is a very difficult question to wrestle with, because if you're expecting nature alone to speak to you, I do believe though. So like inside of everybody, I believe that there's this God-shaped hole.
Okay.
And I believe that also is almost like a beacon. So there's some sort of driving force within every single person to know who God is and know their creator. They've just wrestled with it or suppressed it based on pressure or outside opinion, or not wanting to be the weird guy, that they don't ever talk about it. But I do think everybody has some sort of draw to know more about God, regardless of if they would even say those words or not. I think even atheists wrestle with the idea of like innately who they are and having this draw to know more. So I think that if you're born in the Amazon, in the jungle, like you have no idea about it, even a Bible, paper, any of that kind of stuff, you don't even know what any of that is. I do still think there is some sort of something inside of you that there's a draw within you.
Like a connection one way or the other.
And again, like I said before, God speaks to everybody. And how well you're able to listen, I do think sort of hinges on being able to open up Scripture and find out more about who God is. So that's why the Christian faith is so passionate about sending out missions and trying to reach unreached people groups. And I know that window is closing, the number of people groups that have not ever heard the gospel before. My dad told me a story about Billy Graham, and I can't even honestly remember how old of a story this is or when it happened, but he brought this group of people together, and the question that was presented to these people was, can we fulfill the Great Commission in our lifetime? Like, can we literally spread the gospel all over the world like we're supposed to before we all die? And I think the number when they started, my dad said it was like 2,600 groups at that point that had never heard the gospel before, and that number now is down to 200.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So it's like, the number of people that are being reached is definitely at an all-time high. And so I do believe the Great Commission will be fulfilled at some point, but the people that have never been reached, that have already passed, I have to believe that God created some sort of way for them to have an experience.
Whether their religious beliefs were separate from ours, that kind of the same feeling in their heart or whatever.
That's where it gets weird. I'm not sure if they worship the sun. You know what I mean? Like
is
how
that representation?
How that translates. I'm not God, and I'm glad I don't have His job. You know what I mean? Like those are the types of questions where I'm just kind of like, God is gracious and merciful, and He's so good to people. That yes, he's just and true, but at the same time, man, like I feel like He's good beyond measure, and people that have another opinion of Him, I don't fully get or understand, or maybe they don't know the God that I know. But I just think that God's merciful almost to a fault. You know what I mean? Like He's cheated the system. Like He gave us the opportunity at life, we screwed up, and then He's like, okay, well, I'll just fix that problem by sending my Son. So like there's nothing fair about it, like the devil it was a losing game regardless. And so I just feel like, man, God has to have presented Himself in some way, shape, or form to be able to reach those people. If they ignored it, then it's still on them. But I'm just glad I don't have His job and I don't have to do that. I just try to be Joel and do what I'm called to do and reach as many people as I can here. And again, it's much easier in the United States.
We've got cell phone technology.
Hey, man,
everybody's Christian. Everybody's heard of it.
We got religious liberty here. I mean, we're not like persecuted for our faith necessarily. I would say I feel like that's kind of changing. I do think that some level of like being a Christian now is almost like taboo. Like you're weird and I don't understand you. Like that's becoming more popular. Like the nation is no longer a Christian nation. I feel like it's 100% post-Christian, where the majority of people do not go to church anymore and stuff like that. So I think it's fighting more of an uphill battle than it ever has been. So
what do you think is causing that? You think it's technology, people getting, I mean, my opinion is in the 1800s, right? If I live in a mud hut in the US somewhere where there's not a whole lot to do, and I've got one book that says, hey, this is everything you need to know about the world, I'm probably going to like focus on that book as being the truth of everything.
Yeah.
But when I'm 10 years old in 2020 and I pick up a cell phone and I can see videos of people twerking and do all this other stuff that's like so much like grabbing your attention, I don't want to believe any of that stuff. Which is why I kind of think it's cool that you guys do the webinar stuff, or is it webinar? Not webinar, like online streaming for everything.
Yeah.
I had really negative opinions about it at first because I just looked at it and I was like, it felt very like new age to me because I was not a part of any sort of church community for the past like 11 going on 12 years. So for me to see all this stuff on the internet and everything like that, I'm like, oh, this feels so odd. It doesn't feel right. It seems like they're just like pandering towards people. But then I started thinking, well, if that's where people are, that's where you go, right? I mean, if sinners are in downtown Dayton, you go to downtown Dayton. If they're on the internet, then you go on the internet. So that kind of makes sense too.
Yeah. So I think our belief about that is just like whatever spaces we avoid, darkness kind of takes over. And so for us, we want to bring light into those areas. And so if the internet is an opportunity to reach people that otherwise would never step foot into a church, like we want to take that opportunity. Yeah. But as far as like why society and culture is where it is now, I think the internet plays a role in our current generation, but I believe it's their parents that screwed up, or maybe even, I should say probably like more like this, like the generation before my parents, and maybe even our parents' generation too. Church was so legalistic and it was so judgmental, and I feel like there was so much like you do this right or you go to hell, and it was just like kind of hellfire brimstone type stuff. I feel like church has never, for me, church has always been the answer. It's never been the problem. But I think it's always had a marketing issue.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
I think church just has a bad name. It's got a bad rap for being a place that's unwelcoming to any other view, any other walk of life. And anyway, and I mean, Sundays are the most segregated part of the week as well. Like there's black church, white church, and most of those don't integrate.
That's very true,
so it's been very passionate for us. Like we always wanted our church to represent heaven, and so that's going to look like a variety of different people. Like if you're not okay with black people, then you're not going to like heaven. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have a problem when you get there. And so for us, we've always tried to bring culture together, and we like to mix up music. And we like to mix up who presents and how they present and who speaks and stuff like that. And so we try to incorporate as much as possible to look like heaven as often as we can. And tattoos or not, regardless of what sexuality you would claim or believe about yourself, like you're welcomed here. You might not hear stuff that you like, you know what I mean? Because we're going to preach truth. But that doesn't mean that you're not invited in to at least experience God for yourself and make your own opinion about it. So, so for us, that's something we've always hold pretty dear. But I think because of, more specifically, I guess, like I feel like my friends above all that are now having kids, we were the generation that got like pushed out. Like we were the generation that nobody understood, did not do a good job of reaching. And again, I think church being like a judgmental environment to most people in that day really caused a lot of problems to where now, because of our size of our population, like our generation, and now us having our own kids, if my generation's not in church, then my kids wouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's kind of like created this snowball effect in the other direction. And so, yeah, we're trying to break into that space and reach more people and try to break, through that, like that mold that people have kind of put church into, of like that's
like
only the place.
And hatred. And the funny thing is, you brought that up because the guy that called me when I should have my phone silenced, he's one of my best friends from high school, and he's gay. Okay. And we kind of both left about the same time, and that was a really big turning point for him, is because when he would go to people and say like, "Hey, this is how I feel," they would basically give him the cold shoulder, be extremely hateful, be extremely rude, and then accept somebody who's an alcoholic or a drug addict right afterwards. Which I thought was very odd, because I was like, if it was really so I thought it was very hypocritical for people to pick it about stuff like that, because I'm like, it's not even a 10 commandment. If it was really something that was so detrimental, it would be on the 10 commandments. It's not. There's like 2 parts in the Bible that even mention anything about it, and there's not even a whole full sermon about it. But there's full sermons about not being greedy and not doing this and not doing that. So I think it was very, I agree with what you're saying with our parents' generation and the parents before them.
Yeah.
It was very judgmental for a long time.
Sure.
So he was pushed out, and I kind of followed with him. I'm like, yeah, screw this. I don't like how they're doing this. And I will say, I've not seen a whole lot of people our age picketing the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just maybe the world for them changed so quickly compared to ours, because ours has been like a constant change, but we grew up with change, whereas maybe from the 40s to the 80s, the change in society was so abrupt and so jarring because it hadn't changed in so long that it was a bigger deal to them. I don't really know what the answer is, but I think it's kind of nice to be able to hear somebody say, like, yeah, we accept people to come in. We might not say, like, hey, we believe everything you're doing, but we'll accept you to come in.
Right.
I think a lot of places when I was younger didn't do that at all. It was like, you have to fit this certain square before you come in. We'll polish you up, but you have to be the shape that we want you to be in, and if you're not, then you're not welcome.
For sure.
And what does that lead? You feel terrible and then just go somewhere else, and they accept you where they do drugs, and they accept you where you can drink, and they accept you where they don't believe in anything.
Yeah.
So it's just that family feels more close to a lot of people than a church family that might be judgmental, especially when they see people come. What I felt a lot too when I would go into a church and I would see makeup heavily put on everybody, and everybody wearing their best perfume and wearing their best clothes and wearing the best this. I'm like, I don't fit this image. Like I wear skate shoes. I used to skate forever. I'm covered in tattoos. So when I come in, I see all these people with this stuff that might be like more of a facade than anything else. It would like pull me back a little bit,
Yeah, it like projected like a standard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you
absolutely.
don't meet the standard, then you don't belong. So yeah, I think that was again a huge marketing mistake on the church's part for being that way for so long.
I mean, it's not like you could do anything about it.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, nowhere there's zero context for that in Scripture. You know what I mean? So that's just a man-driven thing and an expectation, and I get it. I don't think it came originally from a bad place.
Yeah, it could just be wearing something best because we're going to go have fun and be happy.
But it definitely created, I feel like, this persona for outsiders looking in like, man, I don't fit this mold at all.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't belong.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, we've tried to make it a lot more casual. Even my dad did. I was shocked because like up until I came on staff, it was like shirt and ties.
Who
and
is your
suits.
dad?
So Pastor Pat is my dad.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was your dad. Okay.
Yeah, so it's suit, tie every day of the week, and definitely Sunday. And the staff was expected to do the same. And so, the churches obviously kind of followed suit. But he started making more progressive changes, even in his appearance. And I feel like that alone, like, changed culture, like, really quick.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, walking in, seeing you wear Nikes, Carhartt t-shirt, and a Vans hat.
Yeah.
I was like, is this the guy we're supposed to talk to? Or is like, okay, that's cool.
So yesterday I was in cut-off shorts, jean shorts, kind of grungy t-shirt and a different hat, and some Sperry's with no socks. And I'm pastor on call this week, so I have to get all the emergencies that come through the office.
Okay.
So hospital visits or whatever. And I had this lady call that her mother-in-law is in hospice right now. And they wanted somebody to come and perform first rites. And I didn't even know what that was. I don't know. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, before somebody dies.
Yeah, so it's like a very Catholic type thing to kind of.
And that's why I was kind of confused why they. I don't think that. Is this Protestant, non-denominational?
Yeah,
or what is the church?
Non-denominational.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was a pretty heavy Catholic thing.
So we probably would have we've always been non-denominational, but leaned definitely towards very Pentecostal in the early years of the church. It doesn't necessarily, I would say we still hold all the same beliefs in the spiritual gifts and speaking in tongues and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily like practiced on the weekend, like for public, display.
I've got to write that down because that speaking in tongues thing is another one that I've got major questions for.
Yeah.
It's definitely for a different video though.
Okay.
I think that's a long answer for stuff because that's like getting heavy into the weeds of Christianity.
Sure. So anyway, yesterday, we get this call. And I'm not sure how long she's been a part of our ministry, been coming here. It doesn't seem like any of her family comes. It might just be her and her husband or whatever. But it's her mother-in-law that's in hospice, and she wants somebody to come and perform first rites. And so I have to Google even what that is. Had no idea. Apparently it's kind of like the prayer, almost like being baptized from this life into the next. And so I just called her, and I said, hey, so honored that you want us to be a part of that. That's not necessarily something that we do in our tradition, you know. But I would love to come and be able to like pray for peace and comfort for you and the family as you're going through grief and stuff like that. So I get there in my outfit that I'm sure, you know. So not only they're asking for something super traditional and formal in a performed way, but then I show up with my hat on. I even forget to take my hat off during the prayer. Right before we pray, one of the guys is like, Joel, can I ask you one question? I was like, yeah, sure. I thought he was going to ask me something about like the Bible or the afterlife or whatever. He's like, can you remove your hat for me? And I was like, dang it. You know, like, yes, I can do it. Of course, you know, and even somebody in the crowd that was in the room was just kind of like, you probably just forget you have that on. I was like, yeah, all the time.
And I can imagine what you felt like then, because I've been in situations like that with like older people that are kind of very more traditional Christian. Yeah. And I do something, or in the past, and then I just feel like so small and so young, and like I feel like a child, like immediately. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
I mean, there's been like prayer events that we've had here. Like we'll have like nights of worship, and there'll be like sections of that where it's not just music, but somebody like kind of lead corporately in prayer. And I was doing that one night, and I had my hat on while I was doing that. It was an evening service, kind of out of the mold of a normal Sunday. And then after church, somebody that's actually not even really that old, but grew up in a much more traditional background, came up to me and shared a scripture with me about like, basically like about having your head covered and how like wrong that is to ever pray with your head covered. And what's so interesting is this is a guy and he has long, like shoulder length hair. Yeah. Well, in that same scripture, it talks about like men having long hair and like how that's against the rules too. And I'm like, did you not read a couple more verses down? You know what I'm saying? Like,
see, like that's where I get like on the whole Old Testament thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff you can't do
like people get nitpicky about other people's issues that they want to zero in on, but they don't like to magnify.
I always thought the hat thing was a funny one though, because it's not like there's a beam that comes out that's blocked by the hat. You have to like move it out of the way or anything like that. Yeah, that's funny. My dad is military though, so ours was always like, don't ever wear a hat inside. So I'm sure when he sees this video, he's going to be super ecstatic that we're both wearing hats indoors. He doesn't care anymore, but when I was younger, it was always like no hats at the dinner table, no hats inside, all that kind of stuff.
This is totally off conversation, but I do want to tell you, like having a baby is literally the coolest thing of all time. Saying. Dude, like life-changing for me.
I'm really excited.
Especially like being a person of faith and believing in God and all that kind of stuff, I feel like getting to be involved in the creation process of a human being is like, for me, again, that was a moment where I was like, how do people not believe in God? Because it was like how he designed a woman to give birth, and then the way that you feel about that baby as soon as you meet it and stuff. I was like, man, this is just such a picture of what the love of God is like knowing nothing. He's presented, like, this child has literally given me nothing, but I would give my life for it. You know what I mean? So, like, it's just such a cool moment that hopefully you will never forget, because, dude, it's, like, the best. Yeah. When do you guys do?
In April. April 9th. Yeah. The funny thing is, I forgot to mention that we haven't, like, told anybody.
Oh.
No.
Sorry, video.
Well, I was going to say, we might as well we'll figure it out. But I was like, as soon as you start saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, this is an awesome thing for the video. I'm like, oh wait, I forgot, I haven't told anybody yet.
So if you're due in April, like, you just found out then?
Yeah, she's 9 weeks pregnant right now,
Wow. That's crazy.
But she's done this whole like old wives' tale pencil test thing where they like hang a pencil over your arm and see which way it swings to figure out. Okay, well, it says that she's going to have twins. Like twice in a row.
Seriously?
And twins run in her family, and also her stomach is already showing, and she's only 9 months, or 9
weeks.
9 weeks, and her stomach's like already poking out quite a bit. And so everybody's like, yeah, and I'm over here like, nah, I'm cool, because I don't have a job right now, so I can't afford one, let alone two. But
is your first appointment, is it 12 weeks? Is that when you normally go? Your 12-week appointment? So they'll get to actually see how many heartbeats are going on in there?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm going to be real nervous while you're like,
dude. So we had two boys. So I have a 7 and a 6-year-old, and we had them 16 months apart. That was not planned, but at the same time, it's like been super awesome because they're like best buddies, and they're basically like
talking about trying to.
They're basically like twins at this point, but and so because we had two so close, we kind of took a nice long break. Kelsey's kind of like, hey, like let's just hold off on any more. I could have just kept rolling, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I love it. But so now we're expecting a girl, and she just hit 20 weeks last week. So I think tomorrow she'll be 21 weeks, and so we're expecting in January.
That's awesome. So our kids will be graduating high school the same year then.
There you go. Yeah.
Man, that sounds so weird. this is weird. It's got to be weird to have kids, right?
It
like
is.
you look at me like, if you die, I get in trouble. Like,
That's true.
This is like,
yeah, like it's on you. Being a parent is a huge responsibility, and so I got a first grader and a kindergartner now, and it's wild.
Is it harder raising them as a infant, toddler, or young?
Oh no,
person?
right now it's definitely way harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think that's gonna happen like as they get older, no matter what?
Yeah, I think every stage until they're kind of like making their own decisions, it's going to get harder and harder until they're on their own, probably. But
I mean, I'm 28 and I'm living in my parents' basement again because we don't have any work. So
hey,
I feel like they're like, yeah, it was easy, and then never mind. 30 years old when you have a kid is the worst.
Dude, we did that for a year and a half when we moved back to Ohio. Like, we didn't want to rent because we knew we were pretty much like permanently here.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to rent and just waste money. And so our parents, or her parents, my wife's parents, were kind enough just to let us live in their basement. And we didn't find anything for a year and a half. So we lived down there for a long time. Yeah. Actually got pregnant at their house, which is even more awkward.
We've been there for a year and the same thing. Well, the funny thing about that is like, so
hilarious.
for the past, like a year and a half ago, I was working for a Japanese company as like a marketing director. I mean, I did everything from like, I sponsored the Air Force Marathon. Like I built products for the Air Force Marathon to use that they still use, like, but with my own two hands, and took video and photo, did it all by myself, translated, did all this hard work. And the company is just like failing. It's just like not a very good company because they won't change to American standards. So a lot of bad stuff happened. I ended up leaving. I was like, I'm going to become a full-time photographer because I'm shooting stuff for like all these things and I'm doing film photography and I want to do this. And then it turned out like, hey, you can't really do that. You're not making very much money. You need to get an actual job. So I was like, okay, we talked about it. We decided I'm going to join the Navy so we can both have healthcare and have all this stuff going on. And then coronavirus happened and then I lost my job. So it's just like for the past like year and a half, I've had like all this like, I was making really good money. I lived in Mason, if you know where Mason is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course you know where Mason is. You're from here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we lived in Mason in an apartment that was 700 square feet. It cost us like $1,400 a month. And
That's crazy.
We had this heated pool and it was like all this like cool fun stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And then like we are down to one car. I had $8 in my bank account 2 days ago. And I had no money coming in. So we're just at this weird spot where I'm like, yeah, man. This is cool. We're not having a kid. Why not throw a kid into it? Even you have nothing going on. We'll figure it out.
Oh, man.
But I don't know. I'm kind of glad I have the personality I do. Otherwise, I'd be going crazy.
Yeah.
Just the gigantic up to like the slow down and then the spiral down.
Yeah.
And then to now it's like, well, there's not really much else that can go wrong. We already don't have a house. So I guess we could lose the car, but I have a bike, so we're good.
Hey. You're in a great spot to be able to kind of recreate and reinvent.
That's what I'm thinking.
You can do whatever you
28
want.
is the new 18. That's what I say.
Dude, 28 was my favorite year of life.
Really?
It really was.
Okay.
So like I had 2 kids at that point.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like.
How old were you when you had your first? Like 26?
26.
Okay.
Yeah. 26 when I had Jack, and 27 when we had Henry. And so yeah, I feel like 28 was kind of like, I don't know, just a great year. I feel like physically too. So like. That was looking back. I feel like the last year where I could like go work out and not be like crazy sore and like ache when I woke up. You know what I mean? So being 30, dude, it's real. Like turning 30 and going up, it's just kind of like all downhill from there. So
man, I've been working out hard the past like year. I dropped from like 230, 240, something like that to 200.
Wow.
And like started powerlifting, and then I got bigger, and then I was like, oh, I can't run now because I'm too big. So then I started running, and then I got smaller.
Yeah.
And now I'm like 215-ish, and I'm doing this whole like 20-hour fasting thing and still trying to lift weights, and I'm hurting already.
It's a little bit difficult.
I'm hurting. I used to skate when I was younger, but yeah, fall down a flight of stairs, get right back up like nothing happened. And now if I've been down too quick, I'm like, oh God,
dude,
I need to go to the doctor.
It is so real. It's crazy. So yeah, hold on to these last couple of years you got there to good.
I'm definitely gonna try to do that.
Or maybe you can just get in a good routine now to where it stays good.
I want to be like one of those guys that's like 70 and you're like, you're how old?
Yeah,
you look
right.
Good.
Yeah, I was just really inconsistent and still kind of am. So I'm trying to get more disciplined. But
I'm really thinking about Taco Bell right now.
Dude.
Yeah, and it's
never a bad time to go there ever. It's always good.
You guys want to go to Taco Bell? I kind of want to go to Taco Bell. Okay. I really appreciate you talking to me.
Hey, man.
It was a lot of fun. Are you thinking? What are you thinking? You want to try to do this again sometime? I think it's kind of cool to do like that.
I would love to hear answers to the questions you asked me from like other people around here. You know?
Yeah. I want to ask quite a few different people about this stuff, and I want to come back to somewhere where I have like a series where I ask either 1 or 2 or 3 different people like one topic, and we just stay on that for a while and just see how it goes.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, thank you for
absolutely
inviting me, man.
And thanks for letting us use all this stuff.
You're very welcome.
Didn't have it.